The Seven Songs, a legacy written with color. How I Built a Cosmology Based in Emotion and Lineage by Jeff B. White. Content warning, harm reduction, and mental health, as well as the reality of Alzheimer's disease. The Seven Songs of Emotional Intelligence. Before I move into the next chapters, I want to introduce the characters who serve as the spine of this story. For Jethran, the story could not happen without them. Likewise, for me, the story would not be possible without the people upon whom these characters are based. When I began writing Fleshborn, I did not want Jethran to find fallen gods in the forest who gave him magical lessons to make everything automatically right. Real healing is not an overnight thing. It did not work that way for me, and I did not want it to work that way for him. Instead, I built the seven songs from the DNA of my own life. I used the people who shaped me and forged them into the personification of the emotional lessons I had to learn. Oddly, when I wrote my memoir, none of these people are in it, because I wrote it focused on myself and my journey. However, for writing this book, when I translated the different chapters of my memoir, Shards of Hope, it made the most sense to transmute the lessons into embodied archetypes. It is the grueling psychological work required to survive, cast as the restorative keepers of the secret hues of emotion. Through this process, I learned where I received the principles and understandings that I have about the world and about my emotions. I found the points of inspiration that had been with me all along. It's what's been beautiful about writing this fantasy story, because when I wrote the true story of my life, I found parts of fragments. Well, I found the shards. Whenever I started placing those broken pieces back together, that's when I found the whole picture. In doing so, I found myself more easily on the pages of this fairy tale than I did in the pages of my own story. Now, I used a specific set of emotions and concepts to define Jethran's growth throughout the story. Each of these emotions is also tied to specific elements. Now, because I wanted the story to be unique, I created a world with things that are completely different from what we have in the real world. There's a list of 7 colors, 7 emotions, and 7 elements, which all correspond with and complement each other. As you'll see below, they align with the physics of even here, but not even here. The Song of Wounds, Creswell. This is the color indigo. It aligns with the emotion of embrace and the element of flame. While fire in this world is actually blue, the elemental flames are purple, and there's a distinction. Additionally, anything that is red in the real world has been inverted to purple in this world, including blood. When I was a kid, I thought my grandmother was unstoppable. She had a strength and a way about herself that commanded every room. She could create anything. I remember her teaching me how to take a simple ribbon and turn it into this opulent, magnificent bow that I still know how to make today. She had recipes that won awards. People would buy her cakes at the holidays, and her church would sell her specific spaghetti gravy for fundraisers twice a year. But as an adult, I look back on her stories and her life, and I see a woman who overcame unbelievable hardships. I see a woman who went through an onslaught of traumas all before the age of 5 and never healed from them. And I base the character of Creswell on her. This is a character about recognizing your wounds, appreciating them, and loving the person beneath them so that you can finally address and heal them. Of course, this is easier said than done. It takes Jethran 3 books and 20 years before he finally applies this lesson. I wanted to convey that healing is not a straight line. Creswell represents radical acceptance. This is often one of the first things that we're taught when we start seeking out ways to heal. And for many people, it is also just the slow, decades-long process of looking at a scar and seeing a foundation instead of a failure. The Song of Silence, Moralis. Cobalt is the color that aligns with the emotion of stillness and the element of void. Anything that is orange in the real world is blue in this world, like pumpkins. This song is based on my other grandmother, Mary Alice, whom her family actually referred to as Moralis. This is a woman who utilized cognitive avoidance as a shield. She came from the school of thought that believed if you do not talk about it, it does not exist. And while it seems like an unhealthy thought, I realized that at times We do have to dissociate from the pain and the trauma happening to us in order to simply survive it. The cobalt mist she offers is a direct conversation about harm reduction and dissociative defense. It is the mercy of silence when the world is too loud. This is starkly different from peace. The concepts that this represents do not offer peace, they simply offer quiet, and those things are not the same. In my life, after living through such severity, I found that the only way to silence the gnawing pain inside me was through substance abuse. It was a coping mechanism, and like any coping mechanism, it can be a trap or it can be a salvation. The mist is the temporary numbness that keeps Jethran from being consumed by the fires of his trauma, staying alive and functional so that the deeper work of recovery can eventually begin. The Song of Strength, Rab. Aureolin is the color that aligns with the emotion of transcendence and the element of seed. Anything that would be green in the real world shows up as yellow in this world, and this includes things like the grass. This lesson is about distinguishing between righteous rage against injustice that is necessary for change and the destructive anger that stops us from growing and destroys everything good. I based this character on my grandfather, one of the kindest and funniest men I've ever met. I never once saw him angry. He never raised his voice or his hand to us, and I imagine that he had to swallow quite a lot of anger to maintain that gentleness. I also imagine that he needed a bit of discernment as to when to apply what type of anger to any given situation. And we are told so often that anger is bad, or is considered to be a negative emotion, but the Buddha suggested our reaction to emotions is what is positive or negative. No emotion itself can actually be negative. Anger has its place. True strength is the ability to rise above the clouds and find a way to make that anger useful. The Song of Memory, Elba. Crimson is the color that aligns with the emotion of trust and the element of self. Anything that would be purple in the real world is red in this world. Elba is the great weaver. The gray world of the city stays in power by erasing the past, but Elba teaches Jethran that self-mastery is impossible without knowing who you came from. I based this character on the same grandmother as Creswell, but I made her the Song of Memory because she died of Alzheimer's. This pillar of strength who told us all these stories from her life ended up in her final days not knowing who she was or where she came from. It was one of the most difficult things I've ever witnessed, watching her slowly slip away into that shell. Making her the personification of history is my way of honoring her. In the story, Jethran realizes she is the person who wove the blanket his mother wrapped around him when he was a baby. Through her, he sees a vision of his world's entire history and future. He sees events from the next 2 books that will only make sense once he's lived them. She allows his past to inform his present so that he can guide his own future. In order to do this, he has to trust himself. The Song of Release, Hungun. Vermilion is the color that aligns with the emotion of acceptance and the element of wave. Anything that would be blue in the real world is orange in this world. This includes the sky and water. Throughout our lives, we become many different versions of ourselves. And throughout this process of natural evolution, we find ourselves having these thoughts of what if and what could have been. If we're not mindful of this, we can completely unravel ourselves with those thoughts. And I realized in order to grow and heal, to become who we are meant to be, we must mourn 3 distinct versions of ourselves. There's the version of ourselves who others wanted us to be, like our parents or people who had visions of who we were supposed to become. Then there's the version of ourselves that society expected of us. The straight, cisgender version, for example, the complacent and compliant version. And then the hardest one is the version of ourselves who we wanted to be, the version who did not live through the trauma. Hungun allows Jethran to take a journey into a mirror that shows him all of the different versions he never got to be. He sees all these different lives and is able to witness how his life would have been. He eventually chooses to mourn those alternative lives and go forward. He chooses to live the life that he has. In doing so, it subverts the chosen one trope, as he made an active choice to go forward knowing everything that was happening. This character is based on my other grandfather. This was a man who distinctly made his own choices in life and chose to live the exact life he wanted without apology or regret. He was arguably the most satisfied and humble person I've ever met. The Song of Truth, Miguel. Celadon is the color that aligns with the emotion of truth and the element of wind. Everything in the real world that would be the color yellow is green in this world, and this includes things like the sun. Miguel is a character who creates her own source of light, and because of that, people come from far away to ask her for her skin so that they can experience the light. She takes patches of her skin and gives them to these people. Her skin grows back in different patches of different hues of green. This serves as a roadmap of her journey. Each patch of skin that grows back does so brighter than it was before. She teaches him that it is not our responsibility to give from ourselves so much that we end up giving too much of what we need. She teaches him about forgiveness, not forgiveness for the oppressor or for the abusers, but forgiveness for ourselves, for the blame that we carry for the things that we have survived. So often in life we're taught that forgiveness is something required for us to grow or heal. There's a globally accepted societal gaslighting that takes place where survivors are held responsible for providing forgiveness to people who are not even seeking it. It's just another form of victimization to guilt survivors into feeling the need to forgive someone. The reality is that the amount of self-blame that takes place when a person is a victim of trauma is too often ignored. This character is based on my friend Tammy Green Mitchell. She wrote an amazing book called Living Without Skin, Everything I Did Not Know About Fierce Vulnerability, available on Amazon. Her story and the things I know of her directly inspired this character. These are 6 of the 7 songs, and the remaining will need to be shared at another time when we arrive at that point in the story. I can't give everything away. Finding the pulse. Jethran's journey is how he finds within himself a living pulse. This is the heartbeat that bridges the different cultures of magic and drives him forward. From some of these lessons, Jethran's journey takes 20 years to complete, while some of them he's able to apply to his life immediately. Regardless of when he does it, by embracing these songs, he stops being the flaw and becomes a connection between the ancient past and a vibrant future. It's only after he restores all of the colors to his world and returns all of the emotions to his people that he's able to rise up and free his people from tyranny. He doesn't need a sword. He doesn't require destruction or violence. His power is found in emotional intelligence and his strength in radical vulnerability. He's a male fantasy lead character who cries because he's sad. He screams because he's in pain. He complains because it's not fair. And he continues because it's what's right. Join the discussion. Which of these songs resonates most with your own journey of survival? For me, although of course they all click, for me it's like Elba and the thing with memory, and the Miguel with the forgiveness situation, because I blamed myself for a lot of stuff that wasn't my fault. And in your own life, have you found a mist that offered silence when things were too loud? I know I definitely did. And how do you balance that refuge with the need to stay present? Because that's one of the most difficult parts. And then we often talk about forgiving others, but how do we practice the song of truth and forgive ourselves for the blame we carry as survivors? Now, not only the blame that we carry for what we survive, but the blame that we carry simply for surviving. And thank you. I want to say thank you to the new subscribers who have joined in the last few days. It's only been 4 days and I have 8 subscribers, and I just think that's really cool. And some of you I know, and I'm so grateful for your support. Some of you are actually inspirations for the characters that I've written about, such as Miguel, who is mentioned above, as well as Winley Knowles, and even Fable, who I will be going in depth on later. Now, some of you I've only just met, and I'm sincerely enjoying reading all the things that you guys are writing and that everyone is writing. I'm loving this community. As always, you can listen to Find Your Colors by Jeff B. White on Spotify, or find me on Substack at findyourcolors.substack.com. Find Your Colors is a reader-supported publication. If the humanity behind Jethran's journey speaks to your own story of survival, consider becoming a free or paid subscriber. I'm currently offering a 44% off for your first year subscription on yearly and monthly subscriptions between now and February 18th. So a monthly subscription is around $3.90 and a yearly subscription is only $39. And now that I actually do have some free subscribers, in an effort to keep from spamming you guys, I will be slowing down my postage to a more scheduled itinerary where I should be posting chapter breakdowns on Mondays and then possibly posting the chapters themselves on Wednesday, and then maybe do a little roundup on Friday. Either way, thank you guys for your support, and I'll see you soon.